Uh, so welcome back to our season two of If It Be Your Will podcast, and I'm ending on a very holiday note. This final podcast of season two, I have Owen Ashworth from Advanced Bass, um, and I am really excited on the eve of his Christmas tour that he's going to be going on. So, Owen, thanks so much for hopping on and talking a little bit about your music and what's been going on with you.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And Owen, you're coming in from Chicago, I believe.
Yeah, just west of Chicago, it's a village called Oak Park. Yeah,
Nice.
that's where I live.
Nice. Cool. Um, I'd love to hear a little bit about your backstory to start. I mean, I've been a big fan forever, and I've been following your music with Casiotone and up the way through your collaborators, your label, etc. Where did it all start for you, Owen? Like, where did music start to become something that you were gonna have a long lifespan in? When did you come to that
Oh,
realization?
that's a good question. I started, I guess, writing songs when I was maybe 19 or 20. Um, I had a little battery powered keyboard that I had borrowed from my kid brother. I was taking a just a very basic music theory class at San Francisco State University, and um, yeah, just for working on scales or chords or things. I just had this little keyboard and I just started writing songs on it. And I had never really messed with like a little keyboard before or,
Hmm.
and just really enjoyed the various organ drones and it had some
Hmm.
built-in drum machine beats, and I was just writing these little 2-minute songs and recording them on the answering machine in our apartment, and you're just playing them for roommates and friends. And I don't know, I just got a lot of like really instant gratification out of it and really enjoyed. I'd kind of dabbled with like fiction, and I was going to film school primarily, but was very frustrated with like the long expensive process of making film, and there was just something
Hmm.
really instant about writing just these little songs that I could perform and record myself. And yeah, that just became my number one creative outlet very quickly.
Well. And do you mainly do most of well, I know the writing, but the production part of it as well? Like, do you tend to like do most of what the albums turn out to be?
It's not always. Early on, when I was trying to make albums, I had friends who had more know-how as engineers. I mean, I really had no equipment. I was starting with zero budget, and so just to find a friend who had a 4-track and a couple of mics who was willing to spend an afternoon helping me record, just that was a really crucial collaboration. Just to do anything beyond like an answering machine recording, which is what I started doing. And it took some years before I could afford my own 4-track, and then some nice microphones, and I've slowly scaled up. Uh, so there are albums that I've produced all on my own, and I that's a really gratifying process. But um, when I've been able to work with like another engineer, it's a big relief in some ways. It's nice just to be able to just to concentrate on the performance and the composition part, and let a lot of the messing with cables and plugging stuff in. I mean, those are usually hours I spend just untangling things, or trying to figure out where the buzz is coming from. So it's nice to have someone help with that part of it, and I just find it just speeds the process.
Yeah, for sure. I love I attended one of, I don't know if it was last year, maybe it was 2 years ago when you did your basement Christmas show that
Oh, like
you
YouTube
cast.
shows.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
And just the curiosity of all of your stuff was just like you have so many different keyboards, like kind of tucked away in
Yeah.
wires and stuff like that. I could understand it could be a bit overwhelming with the analog side of
Yeah.
recording.
Yeah, I tend to go with quantity instead of quality when it comes to music equipment. I have a lot of stuff that kind of half works.
Right.
Nicholas Gergovich, who's a Canadian songwriter, I really admire and a good friend of mine, uh,
Yeah.
he came to visit my basement studio, and he said, "This seems like a dream for you and a nightmare for me. Like just being down here makes me so nervous and stressed out. It's a fire hazard to say the least."
That's it. Um, and like, what were your early influences on? Like, what's the kind of music you were listening to before you jumped into it and said, "Okay, I'm gonna." Like you had mentioned you were much more into filmmaking and literature and stuff, but like, what kind of music do you feel inspires you to kind of take that leap into the recording on the answering machine?
Well, I was a huge Magnetic Fields fan, and I
Hmm.
think the first time I heard the album Holiday, it felt like um someone had just kind of processed all of my influence for me. I was like, oh, I can hear. Then there's a lot of like 60s pop music that I heard growing up in my parents' house, and just like sad country songs, and I don't know, ABBA, things like that. Things that I had
Hmm.
come to on my own, and things that I felt like had just kind of been in my musical life for as long as I've been aware of music. Just felt like the Magnetic Fields contained all of that. So that was really inspiring and motivating to try to make my own music, I think. But I don't know, Kraftwerk was a really big deal to me. I had
Right.
just a Walkman and a couple of Kraftwerk tapes, and I remember walking around San Francisco listening to Kraftwerk is all the time at the time when I started writing songs. And that was kind of that was the point where I really started to get interested in electronic music. And
Right.
so yeah, those were some big early influences. My parents had a lot of 60s soul music and like Beatles and Creedence Clearwater
Hmm.
Revival, and some country music that influenced me as a kid. Like I always just enjoyed hearing kind of more folksier songs with just like, one instrument and a voice, and not a particularly good
Right.
singer often, but just sort of, really kind of really basic but lyric focused songwriting was yeah, I think I have pretty simple taste. So when something is really stripped down, I have an easier time connecting with it. Just because
Sure.
I'm
Sure.
kind of dumb. And I think that you can hear that in my music. It's just very pretty direct and simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't classify it as dumb. I think it's um not, I don't know, simple seems too simple of a word. But like, Owen, what was your
Direct.
original rig that you had for Casiotone for the Painfully Alone? Like, it seems to have morphed as you shifted into advanced bass. Maybe I'm wrong on
Mhm.
that, but was your kit a little? I mean, we're throwing this word around, simple with Casiotone, and then it kind of evolved into a little bit more complex as your music developed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been kind of changing, and as things break and need to be replaced.
Right.
But initially, it was just that little Yamaha keyboard I borrowed from my brother, and then I started looking for other battery powered keyboards at thrift stores and swap meets and
Mm,
things.
mm,
For if I, $10 I could get a used keyboard, and it had a whole new bank of sounds and like drum patterns. And
mm,
I really liked working with those limitations at first. I mean, it was all new to me. So I probably blew through about 15 different very cheap little keyboards during the early years of Casiotone. And they're not the sturdiest instruments. And
mm.
going on tour with these already already well loved secondhand instruments, they didn't always last through the tour. So, and
Right.
there was something
Right.
precarious about that I found really exciting too, that it just seemed like always on the edge of breaking.
Right.
So
Right.
when I could afford it, I started to invest in slightly more stable equipment. Like I started buying little drum machines and samplers and more expensive
Mm.
keyboards that I could depend on and actually get through an entire tour with. So it's been a slow evolution. A lot of that junk is still in my basement, um, uh, but I have been using the same Nord Electro. It's sort of like an electric piano model or keyboard. I bought
Hmm.
it in, I think, 2008 or 2009, and that's still the primary instrument I'm touring with. I've
Amazing.
toured
Amazing.
with real electric pianos at different points, but they were very heavy and temperamental,
Right.
and I yeah, I just went back to the Nord at a point, and it's been really sturdy and dependable. So that's been
Amazing.
my regular instrument since the last few years of Casiotone.
Amazing. Amazing. And did you add other things on when advanced bass came into play? Or did you kind of maintain that simplicity throughout?
Well, I stopped doing Casiotone in 2010. Um, the last Casiotone album was called Versus Children, and I kind of
Hmm.
intentionally wrote it to be the last. I like the idea of just writing my own ending, and I knew I wanted to do different music, but I don't know, ready to try something different. So I intentionally like wrote the last record and toured with that. But at that time, I had done some pretty significant damage to my hearing, um, just from constant touring and just not taking good care of my ears. So when I started writing songs again, I was playing very quiet music and mostly just playing electric piano, which I mostly wrote songs using an unamplified electric piano, just the sound of the tines in my apartment. And I
Right.
started playing music with a few friends, and I like the idea of advanced bass being like an actual band
Right.
instead of just a solo project. So it was my friend Nick played auto harp, my friend Jody played the bass, my friend Ed played piano, and I was playing electric piano. And I just kind of imagined as like I was listening to a lot of like Carter Family and
Yeah.
like American like folk music at the time, and wanted to have like harmony singing and just something like very folksy. But I don't know, it
Right.
didn't take long before I was touring by myself again, just because these were friends of mine who had full-time jobs and traveling was difficult. So I
Right.
kind of
Right.
figured out another solo version uh, of advanced bass that was not super different than what
Right.
Casiotone was, and that just kind of ended up being the easiest version. And after a while, I mean, I was the guy writing the songs and the one really driven member of the group. So after a couple of years, it was I was mostly just playing shows on my own. And
Right.
yeah, I have swapped out various pedals and drum machines and other instruments. I use an omnichord a lot for live
Hmm.
performances, which kind of fills the space that the auto harp used to have in the band. Um, but I kind of have a pretty stable travel rig at this point. Like for the last few years, it's just me and the same old pedals and keyboards.
Nice. And it's I just love it. I love it. I love hearing about the creation processor. um and on that same note, Owen, like how do you go about writing songs? Like how does a song come to you? And how do you know if it's gonna get to tape ever? Or some are just like kind of, rites of passage to the song, or like
Yeah.
what's your process like for songwriting?
I wish I had a more efficient process. I feel like there are a lot of unfinished songs always floating around. I
Mm,
think the more I'm playing piano and the more I'm writing, obviously the more productive I am, the more often those ideas actually turn into something. But there are a
mm,
lot of just kind of little wisps of ideas, or I'll just have a riff or a melody or, a couple of lines in the back of my head. And sometimes it'll take a few years before a little kernel of an idea connects to another little kernel of an idea, and it'll
mm,
kind of build from there. This little
mm,
two-song EP I just released um, a few months ago, as there's a song called "How You Got Your Picture on the Wall" and a song called "Renee Goodnight," and those are both songs that took some years to write. I got
right.
the initial idea for the "How You Got Your Picture on Your Wall" song probably 15 years ago. Just a
Mm,
song about somebody shoplifting and getting caught. And
mm,
it was just this unfinished idea that kicked around for forever until this. I started writing when I lived in San Francisco, and I've been in Illinois for years. But I went back to San Francisco to visit my mom, and I went into the the Walgreens where I had the initial idea for the
mm,
song, and just being
mm,
there I was like, oh yeah, that song. And I just had a
mm,
new perspective on it, and I was like, I kind of knew what I wanted to do the song, and I went home and finished it in a few days. But
right.
yeah, it's not uncommon for me that songs, just the initial idea, it'll be years before it gets
Right.
finished. but
Does it?
occasionally
Yeah,
I'll write something in a day, and it'll be years of thinking about an idea, but all of a sudden a song will just kind of like fall out of my head finished.
right, right. And like if you look at your catalog, were there any of the records that just happened so naturally and just kind of like you were just describing, just flowed out? Like were any of your records that easy? I don't want to say
No.
easy because I know it's not easy, but that
Uh,
just flowed.
I guess maybe the first one, the really early stuff came really fast because I didn't have a whole lot going on, and I was just so excited to be writing. And I had pretty low standards too, honestly. Just to write a song, it felt like such an accomplishment. And I
Right.
don't know, once you've made a few records and you have all these other songs that you've already written to compare your new stuff to, you want the new stuff to be better than the old stuff. So I think the editing process gets a little harsher as you go along. So a
Mm,
lot of
mm,
ideas just don't make the cut these days.
right.
Um, so I don't know. There are songs that happen easily, but I don't think there's ever been an album that happened easily. There's a couple of really tough ones to get finished each time out.
Right. Right. Um, and talk a little bit about like what was the transformation from Casiotone to advanced bass? Like, why did you like you had kind of mentioned that you felt like Casiotone had come to its end and you wanted to have it kind of officially end with the intention of writing an ending record.
Yeah.
What led you to that? To saying, okay, I want to leave Casiotone and I want to move on to something, different.
I think part of it was like it had been there were probably about 4 years between writing that last record and releasing it where I just had an idea like I would like to be able to end this on my own terms. Like I don't feel like
Mm,
this can go on
mm,
forever. So I kind of had this idea for a last record, but there's another album I wanted to make in the meantime. So I kind of just kicked that can down the road.
mm,
But I kind of knew when it was about done. I mean, there are some like mental health stuff where I just realized I had a pretty unhealthy relationship with having a music career and with touring, and just
mhm,
realized that if I was going to keep making music, I kind of needed to stop and figure out what music was going to mean to me.
mm,
So taking some time away was really healthy. And I think just starting over with some new songs was like a really good challenge. I mean, I did Casiotone for like more than a decade, and there are some
right,
songs that I just felt so personally disconnected from, and I
mm,
didn't feel like I was the same person singing them who wrote them, and I didn't want to
right,
sing those songs anymore. And
mm.
honestly, the memory bank on my samplers was pretty full, and I was having to start make the hard decisions like what am I going to delete to write a new song. And I kept
Right,
daydreaming. It's like, what if I just deleted everything and I had to start all over? And that was just such an attractive idea.
mm,
Um, but honestly, having some damage to my hearing was, I mean, I feel like my body kind of forced the ending where I was like, it is
right,
time to stop.
right,
So
right,
yeah, so I started writing much quieter songs, and
mm,
it was tough. It was very humbling to have to just completely start over, but I feel like it
yeah,
was a good challenge for me, not only personally but just as a songwriter. um yeah, I
yeah,
had
that's
a
cool.
lot to live up to, I felt like, after the last project.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, and you came out like blazing, like your first record is as advanced bass. I mean, it's a classic. I mean,
Oh, I
there's so
appreciate
many
that, thanks.
amazing songs on that. And I do love that. I do find that you got more innocent a little bit. I mean, your songwriting was so strong, yet it was this simplicity, but it had this way of moving you in a way that it's like, wow, I gotta listen to that again and
Oh, I
again and
appreciate
again.
that.
Yeah, yeah, it was really I listen to it to this day still. I mean, there's just some of the tracks that are just love. But I kind of wanted to, as we kind of get to an end here, Owen, I want a little info on you and Christmas. Now,
Oh yeah.
you write a ton of Christmas songs.
Mhm.
I mean, I was just trying to count them all before, and I mean, I got up to about 10, but I know there's more than that. where the theme is Christmas or Christmassy themes. And you're doing this tour now where you're going to go and like, what's the tour about? Is it a Christmas tour where you're only playing Christmas songs, or is it like, what's the idea behind it?
Well, I'm not only playing Christmas songs, but this is the only time of year that I play the Christmas songs. I mean, at this
Right.
point, I have enough songs where there are songs that I just save for certain times a year. It's just there's
Mm,
song. I mean, there's a song called Summer Music that at this point
right.
I save that for summer, and there are enough Christmas songs where I just a few years ago I started doing these Christmas tours where that's just when I play all the Christmas songs, and it just
Mm,
seems like I started writing them as a fan of Christmas music, but also as someone with just like a very complicated relationship with the holiday. And I just think it's just a very emotionally fraught time. And I think there's just so much to write about, just all the
mhm.
weird feelings people have around holidays. And none of them are like, celebrating Christmas. Like they're not happy songs. A friend of mine described them as life during Christmas time songs. Um, it's just about people kind of like getting through life with Christmas going on around them. Um,
Right. Right.
so
Survival
yeah,
mode.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like the Roaches are a musical group I've always really admired, and they always did
Mhm.
the Christmas shows where they had a special program that was just for Christmas,
Right.
and I there was something both so attractive and so perverse about that for me, just to write.
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Grinch exactly, but I don't really love Christmas. I think it's really complicated and I have a lot of feelings about it. And I think there are a lot of, I mean, enough people have told me that these songs are a comfort to them during the holidays when,
Mm.
Christmas is just kind of a shit time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it feels nice just to put all those songs together. And I love touring during the
Yeah.
winter, honestly. It's such a nice
Okay.
time of year to be driving around and looking at, the winter scenery.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very quiet in the winter too, eh? And it kind of
Yeah.
it creates that nice mood for your music. Like your basement shows. I mean, what a cozy, beautiful scene, and it's so comforting. I remember when you did your Christmas YouTube recording, and I mean, I just kept watching it because it gave me comfort. I felt like
Ah, great.
fuck Christmas, but at least I got this video I can listen to, and
Yeah.
um, it's cool. Like I love your double kind of image of that. Like the illusion of Christmas of what it is, and
Hmm.
and messing with that a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's really a great idea.
And
And like, yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, I have a lot of sense memories from being a kid on Christmas, and the things I love. I mean, I honestly love the smell of having a tree in the house, and just
Hmm.
certain tones that you associate with Christmas music that just kind of hypnotize me immediately. And I like kind of like living in the atmosphere of Christmas, but being able to use that atmosphere to like speak really honestly about what sucks about the holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another one of your magical talents is the expression of simple ideas, but in these really interesting, intricate ways. I always thought that you grew up reading tons of books and like narratives, and because your music is like a book almost. I mean, the songs, how they unfold, it's just really wonderful. Um,
Thank
so
you.
what can people that have the fortune of going to these shows, and we can kind of the rest of us can imagine, like what do these shows look and feel like for you? How do you set them up?
They're not really any, I mean, I don't like have special decorations or I don't dress like Santa. I mean, they're not aesthetically, they're not really any different other than, I don't know, something about people coming in their cold weather clothes though. And everyone's like, they walk in the room and like their glasses fog up and they've got like, ruddy cheeks from the cold weather, and something about being inside and with people on when it's the weather is cold outside. There's something really disarming about that. I just feel like there is just a different feeling in the room when people come together during winter, and
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels right for my music. Like, people have been telling me forever that fall or winter is when they listen to my music, and it's just it's just the time for me to sing my songs. That's when I'm supposed to be doing it.
That's it. That's it. Well, I wish you a ton of happiness as you do this tour.
Thanks.
And I really appreciate those two songs that you put out. I've been listening to them quite a bit. Some really great writing on. So, as we
Appreciate
kind
it.
of end here, like what can we anticipate? So you have your tour that's going on. What's 2024 look like for you?
I'm continuing to slowly record for the new album. It's this month has been taking an especially long time just because I don't know, life just feels a lot busier than it used to, and
Yeah.
making time for music feels like more of a privilege and of like a special thing than it used to be. Like it's hard to make time for it as I get older. But
Mm.
yeah, it's slowly putting together this new album, and uh I run this label at Rindle Records, which takes up a good amount of my time, which I really enjoy. Really nice community of artists involved with the label, and I love working with them. So yeah, probably touring with some Arundel artists, and there's some really great releases coming from Arundel in the coming months. And I don't know, I do a lot of drawing. I think I'll probably expect more illustration from me. It's something I
Nice.
enjoy doing as well. But yeah, I mean, I love touring without worrying about it being on an album cycle. I just really love
Right.
to play shows and it not feeling attached to promoting anything. It's just for the sake
Yeah.
of the shows. So I don't know. I feel like I have a different timeline and just kind of thought process about what it means to tour and play shows than I did when I was younger and was really
Mhm.
hustling to promote records.
Sure, sure. Well, I love your new mindset, and I love your um, need to create. It's it's inspiring, and it's
Thanks.
been really fun.
It's all for me is the secret. Like this is what I need to do just to feel okay in my brain. So I'll
Yeah,
keep making stuff as long as I've got this brain. But I really appreciate that it's connecting with other people.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, all the best. I have had some of your artists on actually the podcast, and they've been wonderful. Nicholas came for a chat, and
Great.
what a guy, what a
One of my
player.
favorite people. Just
Yeah,
the
he
Nick's
is
the
such
best.
a
Yeah.
great songwriter too. Wow, what a musician. Anyway, it sounds well. I know your catalog is amazing, and if you ever want to have any of them come and have a chat with me, I'm all for it.
Oh, I know you had Little Kid on recently, and
Little Kid, amazing.
Little
Such
Kids,
good
their new
good
album's coming
record.
from Arundel early next year, and they're
Can't
wonderful
wait.
folks, and yeah, they made a beautiful record.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing that and your music as it comes out. So hopefully this is not the last time we meet, Owen. It wasn't the first time, but it hopefully won't be the last.
Oh, well, yeah, I hope so. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your questions.
Thanks so much, Owen.
Growing up in Richmond, you were anarchic and shy. Tried to steal some tampons that you were too scared to buy. Say, she's the Kroger manager, said in his faithful drawl. That was how you got your picture on the wall. You told me the story the first night that we hung out. 1,000 miles west in your new room in your new house. You laughed when I said I'd like to see that photo now. And we kissed beneath couple Julys later, and we live together now. I drove your van to Richmond to move your kid brother out. And cruising by the Kroger, I remembered all about Laney, how you got your picture on the wall. I snuck around the back to where deliveries arrive. I saw